Food can be considered art. It can also be considered a dumpster fire. However, some are so simple to make, so ingrained in our daily lives, that they firmly establish themselves in the middle of the scale of artistic masterpiece to nuclear waste. One of these is the humble sandwich. Sandwiches were invented in the mid-18th century by the 4th Earl of Sandwich, who supposedly came up with the idea so he wouldn't have to leave his gaming table. The game that he was playing when he came up with this amazing idea was, of course, Bloons Tower Defense 2 on CoolMathGames.com. This invention made college students and lunchbox manufacturers around the world rejoice as their lives were about to get a little bit better. While I was unfortunately not able to witness this amazing invention, I still can try to master its discipline. We'll start our journey to become sandwich ultimate grandmasters with a look at the sandwich that many begin with: peanut butter and jelly. Peanut butter and jelly needs no explanation. How to make it is in the name. Unless your name is Elvis Presley. Mr. Presley's favorite sandwich was apparently peanut butter and banana, which sounds fine, but then he adds bacon to it. Bacon is a welcome addition to most foods. This is not one of those times. For science, I'll try it to see if he wasn't insane. I'll only put bacon on half of it because I haven't tried a peanut butter and banana sandwich by itself, so it might be interesting. The just peanut butter and banana sandwich actually tastes pretty good. I still prefer jelly, but this is a respectable alternative. Once the bacon gets added, things go south. The flavor of the bacon wasn't even that strong, but when it does show up, it just feels like it doesn't belong. This is definitely somewhere where the magic of bacon doesn't improve the flavor. Elvis was probably mentally impaired when he made this. Don't replicate it. Next, we're going to go over a very underappreciated aspect of sandwiches, and that is their loose definition. While the original sandwich was just meat between two pieces of bread, the definition evolved to be anything between two pieces of bread. Then it devolved to be anything between two of anything else, and you should have noticed that hot dogs don't fit any of those descriptions. That's because they aren't sandwiches. So you're saying that if I take my leftover pizza, put some of the 6 out of 10 packet cheese that everyone always has too much of on it, and then put another slice of pizza on top, then that's a sandwich? Technically, yes, but if you do, you're going to be put on the same list as Elvis. What I'm trying to get at here is that you can use leftovers from other meals to make sandwiches. You can use the 30 tons of leftover barbecue chicken that you have because your parents forced the barbecue to have it alongside of the brisket that everyone ate instead. Slap it on some bread, dress it up, and boom, fake Chick-fil-A. This one turned out fine. I wish I put some more sauce on it. It turned out a bit dry, but it was still a better use of the leftover chicken than just eating it by itself. While I could just make another one with the mountains of leftover chicken I have, I want to try something else. So you take the chicken, you throw it in the blender with some relish, mayonnaise, and some seasoning, slap it on some bread, and boom, you're left with something that is somehow still dry. Chicken can be hard to work with in this way, but we can salvage this sandwich by putting enough relish on it so that way the bread would become soggy if I took this to lunch in elementary school. And then we are left with a good chicken salad sandwich. Tastes like chicken. But you know what else tastes like chicken? That's right, more chicken. I got the Chick-fil-A Sandwich Deluxe. Tasted just as good as I remembered it, but with the added knowledge that this is a necessary business expense. The sauce is the best part of everything at Chick-fil-A, and the waffle fries are an especially good vessel for it. So is the sandwich. Was this just an excuse to buy lunch? Possibly. Some may look at the sandwiches we've made so far and think, you've done nothing special, you literally bought one of those sandwiches. All of that was easy amateur sandwich making, and nobody likes you. And you'd be right. So for the final 2 sandwiches, I'm going to put a ton of effort into them to prove that I can indeed make a good sandwich, and that this all isn't some elaborate ploy to tricking people that I can cook. The next sandwich I make is one of my personal favorites, the club sandwich. The key components of a club sandwich are that it's made using 3 pieces of toast and bacon. However, preparing for the sandwich made my brother want one too, and so I had to make a lot of toast, even though he didn't listen to the first requirement. We gather our necessary resources, which include guacamole, which would make this sandwich cost $1.50 extra in most restaurants. My brother fried an egg for his sandwich. I don't like eggs on sandwiches that aren't trying to be breakfast sandwiches, but he likes to live life on the edge. We stack up the layers with bread, the top tier condiment, mustard, turkey, bacon, cheese, tomatoes, subscribe, mayonnaise, bread, more mustard, more turkey, the guac, bacon, different cheese, lettuce, more mayonnaise, and more bread. Here's what it would have been if I stole my brother's sandwich to make the Ultra Mega Deluxe Club. Unfortunately, as I am unable to unhinge my jaw to eat that behemoth, I don't have a good enough excuse for my conscience. This was a very good sandwich. Everything worked together and they all built off each other's flavors in the same way that I didn't build my brother's sandwich onto mine. It isn't dry, it isn't soggy, the bacon actually works here unlike some other places. It's just excellent. I would definitely consider making this again. It requires a lot of prep work, but the end product is very much worth it. However, the one flaw shared amongst all these sandwiches was something I could have changed but chose not to, and that was the bread. Is it surprising that a guy who made an entire video about bread wouldn't be making his own for his sandwiches? At least the ones he put effort into? This is what I was thinking as I contemplated what to do for my final sandwich. I decided I was going to make my own bread for this sandwich, but it needed to be special. It needed to fill a void I had in my life. Grilled cheese is a very simple sandwich that can be made very fast and very dumb. It's just some bread with cheese in the middle, cooked or toasted in some way so it all melts together. There's even debate about whether or not you can add more stuff to the sandwich without it becoming not grilled cheese. Like, I could add bacon to this to instantly improve the flavor, but then I'm technically making a bacon and cheese sandwich and not a grilled cheese. And for my final sandwich, I am making a grilled cheese, so anything else added will be cheating. But that means we can still go all out on the bread.
It's jalapeno cheese bread time.
We start by adding flour, salt, diced jalapenos, and cheese. And when I say cheese, I mean a lot of cheese. More cheese than Tim Cook could ever dream of stealing. More cheese than the recipe requires. More than enough to satisfy my disappointment over the last cheese bread I made. In a second, larger bowl, we add warm water and yeast. We then mix it till it's not clumpy, and then we add the first bowl's contents to the second ones. We then stir it till it's mostly consistent, then we fold the dough in the center a bunch of times. I'm a big fan of this folding motion. It's a really good way to mix things together when baking and basically anything that isn't just a liquid. We cover it for a towel and let it rise for an hour. We origami the dough again, put the towel back on and let it rise some more. After 30 minutes, we need to put our Dutch oven into the actual oven at 450 degrees Fahrenheit. The proper pot for your Dutch oven needs to be round and fairly tall, as I found out when making this bread a second time. You really don't want to give the bread much room to spread out because then it won't rise as much. And we need it to rise quite a bit for our engineering grade grilled cheese. After we selected our pot, we need to shape parchment paper on the inside of the pot and then take it out. Both selecting the correct pot and molding the parchment paper need to be taken care of before we can put it in the oven. The reason why we need the parchment paper is that after 30 minutes, the Dutch oven will finish preheating and we need to take it out. We then need to add the parchment paper back to the Dutch oven, and dealing with a 450 degree oven for any longer than you have to is just begging for trouble. We dust a cutting board, dump the dough onto it, and fold it about 8 times again until it's vaguely ball-shaped. We then place the dough inside the Dutch oven. We cut an X at the top for aesthetic purposes or something. We then decorate really for aesthetic purposes this time. We then put the lid on the Dutch oven, put the whole thing in the big oven for 30 minutes, then take the lid off and leave it for another 20 minutes. When the time is up, we remove the bread from both ovens. And then it's time for the hardest step of all, waiting as this delicious, cheesy smelling bread cools fully before cutting it. It's worth the wait, it'll make the crust better. We then cut the bread into sandwich slice thick slices, and then try a piece, because you waited this long and nobody's foolish enough to stop you. Now that we have this beautiful bread, it's time to put it towards its purpose, grilled cheese. Coat the outside of the bread with mayonnaise instead of butter. It tends to spread better and taste just as good. We then add a bunch of cheese to the middle. Importantly, the cheese that we used in both the bread and the middle is cheddar. We aren't experimenting this time, we're going for gold. This is then toasted on a pan using medium heat, so that way the cheese in the middle has enough time to melt. I'm not sure if this is considered grilling, even though this is grilled cheese, more like toasting or something. I've debated enough about sandwich definitions today. The sandwich is flipped once the mayo is a nice golden brown. This one turned out amazing. Absolute perfection. But I do prefer my grilled cheese with tomato soup. That's why I'm also making a can of Progresso. Tomato soup is really only good to dip grilled cheese in, and I need to use this can. It's also the single worst soup to eat cold. Once everything is set, we go for a taste test. I have no way of adequately describing how good that grilled cheese was. Everything went perfectly. Even just thinking about it makes me happy. This was the perfect grilled cheese sandwich. Nothing I've ever had before compares with what I just ate. And for those of you who are wondering, yes, I did make it again with bacon, and yes, it was also spectacular. Future me is gonna have a tough time editing this video, being reminded of that sandwich, but not being able to eat it. Thank you for joining me on this journey to sandwich perfection. And if there's one takeaway from this video, it's that I need to make the grilled cheese sandwich again. And if there's a second takeaway from this video, it's that people need to be wise about where they put their bacon.